Hi and welcome to Four Wheels Good, the only weekly motoring programme to run right the way throughout the year. And what a programme we have for you this week, a great mixture of old and new. Nostalgia from the auto jumblers at Beaulieu, and from Stirling Moss, who'll be relating his memories from that terrible crash in 1962. We'll also be visiting the Vauxhall Heritage Centre later on. If you like your cars new and shiny, we'll have plenty of Porsches for you this week and Jeep Wranglers galore, although they got a little bit dirty once they were driven halfway across Alaska. But first, next weekend, the National Motor Museum in Beaulieu sees the 31st International Auto Jumble, where there'll be over 2,000 stands, making it by far the biggest in Europe. It was Beaulieu which invented the Auto Jumble. The first was held in 1967 with just 75 stands. This year, nearly 40,000 visitors are expected at the National Motor Museum. What attracts them to the New Forest from all over the world? Well, Steve Vokins went to visit the last Auto Jumble to find out.
I'm here at Beaulieu in the New Forest, home of the National Motor Museum, to see a very special event, the Spring Classic Auto Jumble. Beaulieu invented auto jumbles back in 1967 and ever since has developed the idea to make it a world leader. Today's auto jumble is no exception. It's got over 750 stalls, it's got a classic car run, a classic car show, and anybody who turns up in a pre-1973 car gets in as part of the show. So come along, let's have a look, see what else we can find. It's 10:15, and tension's building up. The barriers are opening at 10 o'clock, and here we have some people dying to get in. Can you tell me, where have you come from today?
I've come from Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire.
And what are you looking for?
Oh, I'm looking for the 50s period competition parts for my trials cars.
Excellent. Are you a frequent auto jumbler?
Just about every weekend, yes.
And have you been to Beaulieu auto jumbles before?
Oh, of course. This is one you just can't afford to miss, and especially the one in September. It's just can't afford to miss it. There's so much to buy here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I hope you find what you're looking for. Thank you. Have you come far today?
Canada.
Canada, that's the furthest so far.
Holiday. Yeah, come visit family. But knew the museum was going to be on. Thought we'd come over.
I'm talking now to Lord Montague of Beaulieu. Lord Montague, you've been holding auto jumbles here since 1967. Do you see this as part of the role of Beaulieu as being the motoring mecca?
Well, indeed, we invented the word and the event in this country. There was one, of course, in America at Hershey, but I do very much so. We are obviously a mecca for old car enthusiasts all over the world, and twice a year we try to give them facilities where they can buy spare parts, buy cars, indeed, literature, and all sorts of things that helps them with their hobby. And I really believe that we have established a very good event here. Certainly we're now in our 31st year and going strong.
And are you looking for anything today?
Well, you never know. I often look for copies of my books, which I wrote many years ago, now out of print, which I always go around the bookshops, you know.
It's almost 10 o'clock, it's Saturday morning, and the barriers are coming away. It's raining, but spirits aren't dampened as the auto jumblers who've come from all over the world are surging forwards. The air is so full of tension, the excitement as they go looking for these spares. They've come from all over the place, and there's lots of money going to be spent today buying what most people might think is old junk. But these are cognoscenti. They know what they're looking for, and they're out for bargains, and I wish them all the luck in the world. I have with me now John Coleman, events manager at Beaulieu. John, it must be a lot of fun running an auto jumble.
Oh, it is, absolutely. It's marvellous fun, it really is. I mean, we've got characters like Sean here, Sean McGee, and he brings along all these bits and pieces here. It's a very demanding job, mind you, sort of getting all these people into sort of these little spaces.
Tell me the sort of numbers of people that come and the sort of things that are going to happen here this weekend.
Well, what we've got here today is around about 450 stands. This is in the red field and green field, which is over the other side there. Over in the arena there, which is next door to the Motor Museum, we've got the Mini Cooper Register, who are doing their bit with regards to cavalcades and a variety of other mini-orientated bits and pieces. We have over the other side of the field there the classic car show, which basically is any car that's over 25 years of age. Somebody may be proud of it. It might be an old banger, but somebody might still be proud of it, and they're welcome to bring it along. And then over the other side, if somebody is really proud of it and the car is in original condition, then we have the Pride of Ownership, of which of course is judged by Jeff Brown of the Classic Car Weekly magazine. Lots of bits and pieces. In the evening we've got some entertainment with a jazz band. That's from 7 o'clock onwards, so the auto jumblers have got something to do in the evening as opposed to just sitting down twiddling their thumbs.
I'm talking to Jan Hoy now, Head of Personnel at Beaulieu. Jan, tell me, the numbers of people involved for an event like this must be enormous. How do you find them all?
Horrendous, but very good. We're very lucky, Steve, because we've got a lot of ex-staff who have now gone into the other world of work, and they come and help us out. They love coming back, pick up contacts they already had. They love the buzz of an auto jumble, boat jumble, whatever event it is. But we also have a group of people called Friends of the Events. They're in fact friends of our staff, their husbands, next door neighbours, aunts, uncles, cousins. So it's great, and they look forward to coming every year. They come in for their egg and bacon butty at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's amazed how people can be persuaded by an egg and bacon butty. And it's great fun. They love it.
Good, yes, I've spoken to various staff and they all say what fun it is. So how long have you been doing this?
20 plus years. I'm not going to own up to any more than that.
That's good enough. Jan, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Some places are more popular than others. I wonder what's in here. These auto jumbles attract all sorts of weird eccentrics, and here's one now.
Thank you.
Ken
Yeah.
Hill,
Yes,
tell me what you found so far.
I found several brochures,
Yeah.
some quite rare, but don't tell the person who I bought them from, will you? Because he didn't charge me nearly enough for one of them. I've got a 1912 brochure for £105. That should be something like £200.
Bit of a bargain then.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah, done well.
It's amazing what you find at auto jumbles. Things that you used to think were tacky are now quite collectible. Look at these beautiful pair of nodding dogs. Well, you never know what you'll find next at the auto jumble, and look what I've come across. A circa 1950s caravan, is it?
Yes, about that, we think, sort of a folding caravan, approximately that age, but it came without any plan, so it was just a guesswork as to how we completed it when I got it.
Do we know who built it?
We don't know. It's somebody in the Wallingford area in Oxfordshire, that's as far as I know.
And did it take a lot of restoration?
Well, it did to start with, but the difficult part was working out actually what to do. But once I decided what to do and how to do it, then it was quite quick.
And you've brought it here for sale today?
For sale and to sleep in, and you can see the weather sort of going to need a bit more than an awning.
So really anyone who buys it today can't take it till Sunday night?
Well, they can. We have come prepared, yes. I've got an air bed instead of that, so I can sleep under a bit of tarpaulin tonight if necessary, and tomorrow night.
I'm standing next to Fred Ely, who's been doing auto jumbles ever since the very first one at Beaulieu in 1967. Fred, tell us some of your memories of auto jumbling in the past.
Well, I hardly know where to start because I enjoy Beaulieu so much. I don't know how I would feel if I didn't have my site here. And I'm 76, nearly 77, and I'm looking forward to the next 30 years. And I'm hoping I should keep on auto jumbling. I keep finding a bit and selling a bit, and it's great fun. Absolutely great fun.
So what was the very first auto jumble like then?
The very first auto jumble was over in where the new museum is standing now, and I paid £1.50 for my site, or £1.10, and I took £7.10 and thought I'd had a good day.
I notice your sign.
Yes, you see, when I go home at the end of September, this will come again in September. When I come home in September, I should black out the 1, black out the 7, and I should paint in 32 and 98, ready for next May, you see.
Excellent.
So it's good fun.
Fred, it's people like you that really make the show what it is. Thank you very much.
That's all right, welcome.
One of the comments you hear most often in the museum is they don't build them like that anymore. Well, looking at that, I'm quite glad they don't.
hope the weather's better at the next Beaulieu Auto Jumble. That's next weekend, the 13th and 14th of September. Well, a piece of auto memorabilia is hanging on the wall in Stirling Moss's study in London. It makes him feel glad to be alive every time he looks at it. It's the twisted wheel from the car which crashed on that fateful day in the early 1960s. Mike Rutherford talks to Stirling now about the day in which he almost raced his last.
But, you know, so having said all this, though, Stirl, about safety, doesn't that inevitably mean that what you're really saying is the consequence of all this is that people are going to get hurt and, God forbid, people are going to get killed?
Unfortunately, that has always was one of the unfortunate necessary ingredients, I suppose, of motor
racing. Do you think it is necessary? Do you think that the two have to go hand in hand? Top flight motorsport and death and injury?
I suppose they don't have to, because thank God there isn't that much serious injury now. But I think that to make the sport as difficult as it ought to be to go into, then I'm afraid that that ingredient has to be present.
Now, can I be? This is something that we haven't talked about, and all the years I've known you, we've very rarely touched on this subject because I'm never sure if it's a very sensitive subject. And if you want to tell me that you want to move on to something else, we'll do that.
I'll leave.
But you'll tell me in no uncertain terms, I'm sure. But can we talk briefly about your big accident at Goodwood?
Oh yeah, that doesn't worry me.
I mean,
I'm sorry I was there, but it doesn't. No, it doesn't worry me because
it nearly killed you.
Yes, but I can't remember it.
Can you honestly not remember anything?
No, I can remember nothing from the day before. I'd been to a party, and I met a real cracker, a South African girl who was so cute.
Name?
It doesn't matter. But she was really very bubbly and a lot of fun. And the last thing I actually remember was backing out, I think, from the hotel in which I was staying at Chichester, because it was at Goodwood, and banging the thing that the doors closed onto, and it gave a bang on underneath the car. It was all right. And I went to the circuit, and then I can't remember anything anymore.
Now, the party, you weren't drinking at you didn't used to drink
I didn't
the night
drink.
before.
No, I didn't drink.
Unlike that
no.
Mike Hawthorne, who used to drink
he drank
quite healthily and always used to win these bloody races.
Yeah,
wasn't fair, was it?
Well, no, that was all right.
Anyway,
Mike had his thing, and
it's not as if there was a problem and you had a little trace of alcohol in your blood the next day, and that interfered with you. I mean, I knew that anyway, but I just wanted to be clear about that. You go to the circuit, you come off. Do you remember the laps before? Do you remember actually coming off?
I do not even remember. I know what I did because I've read it. I came into the pits because I was having some trouble with the selection of the gearbox, but I don't remember that. I have an island amnesia which more or less goes from the morning of the race until I think 4 weeks after when I became conscious again. And I don't remember anything. So I have no fear or worry. I mean, it's just a fact. I don't even to this, while we're talking now, I don't actually know where I went off. I know the corner, roughly where it was.
I know. Peter Gethin showed me down.
Oh, well, he would know, but they haven't put a plaque up or anything, have they? There's no little cross there for me.
It didn't kill you still.
No, I suppose that's the point. I suppose I should be pleased about that.
Thank God.
Yeah. No, but I know roughly where it was, and it was after this corner called Forewater, I think, and I can think why it might have happened. But one thing I'm pretty sure of, frankly, is one, I don't think I made a mistake because I could take that early part flat out, and there's no reason why I shouldn't have done. And the other thing that could quite possible is that something mechanically went wrong. In other words, something went wrong on the car.
Not for the first time.
Oh, I'd had wheels come off and God knows what else. Yes, on that car, or cars like that. And I don't know what it was. It happened too quickly. The pictures of it, of course, are taken by an amateur with an 8mm camera, so they don't really show anything. And they had to cut the chassis open to get me out.
I think I'm right in saying that the day after that incident in the early 60s, that was the front page news story. I mean, it was the headline news story. Just as the headline news these days might be about Tony Blair or John Major, it was about Stirling Moss.
Yes,
not the sports pages. The front pages.
Well, no, it's interesting you say that because in my era, I don't think ever was my race reported on a sports page. It was always editorial news. You know, either somebody had been hurt, or you'd done this or that, or you went out with some girl or something. But it was never not relegated. It was never placed on the sports pages. Motor racing wasn't any more than was, shall we say, polo.
And what about your injury, still? What exactly did you sustain?
Well, my main injuries, I broke the odd bone here and there, but my main injury was that I banged my head, which then put me unconscious for a month and paralysed down one side, this side actually, or no, left side I think, for 6 months. And my speech, I slur. Even when I came to, I could talk, but I couldn't speak properly. And I can even remember now how the way I slurred. It was quite bad. I had no memory. My memory, if I started to tell you something, and as an anecdote or something, I'd then think, well, why the hell am I telling you this? So I had no memory. No concentration, and in fact that's why I had to give up really from motor racing, which I tried myself out within a year, and I think I should have waited 3 or 4 in hindsight. But the sport moves fast, and the press, as you know, the power of the press, they keep coming, are you going to race, when are you going to race? And I always thought I'd race another week, putting it off, because I thought I would. And they were.
What about vision? Any problems with that afterwards? Because seeing some of the pictures, and not all the pictures I think were published. I've seen some of them, and
my eye actually sort of came out. I think. No, my vision was certainly quite acceptable. I mean, I still now I need glasses to read properly. But if it's a bright sunshine, I can read. No, there were no problems on that. I think my main problem was loss of concentration. I lost my balance. I couldn't stand on. I mean, if I wanted to put my socks on, I have to lean against the wall then, and those sort of things. And I mean, I'd had worse accidents. I broke my back and my legs only 2 years before. I'd been racing within a month, and so I was convinced I'd be racing very shortly. And of course, it didn't work out that way. I mean, I wanted to.
It seems to me that the difference between those days and these days is that. In your era, in the 50s and in maybe the 60s as well, and the 70s, because there were an awful lot of tragedies in the 70s.
Yeah, they were listing. There were once, when Jackie Stewart came in, he started bringing the Armcos and this, that and the other, and taking there's no doubt that safety was considered. In my era, the safety we considered was purely of the public, because the public matter. And we said, look, we had an association we formed called the GPDA, which has been restarted. But the first thing we said was, look, we've got to look after the public. They are the paying people. They're the reason we're there. Therefore, we must make sure that where they are is kept safe. And that was one of our important things. And which is quite interesting how it's now changed. If I'd been driving a modern car, I can tell you this boy, I'd have been back in the pits and got another one out. I mean, it would be nothing. That is for sure. But I was very lucky driving the thing that I was driving and the way it went. Certainly, I'm lucky to be here now.
Well, an incredible experience with a happy outcome. Next week, Stirling Moss will be talking about modern-day safety in Grand Prix racing. After the break, a treat for you if you're a Porsche fan. Hi, and welcome back to 4 Wheels Good. What is it about a Porsche that makes it such a desirable vehicle? Pippa Jones went in search of the pure essence of the driving enjoyment of this very special machine.
In anticipation of the Althorp Porsche show in Northamptonshire, we went along to Stratstone's dealers in Wilmslow. Like many other regional dealers, they were forming a convoy to join the other Porsches at the event. Andy Axton, sales executive, told us about the car. Well, these are beautiful specimens. It's a shame you have to put plates on, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. It does spoil the line of the car somewhat, but that's the law, unfortunately.
So what would you say is the cost of running a car like this?
It's a lot less than people think. The great thing about Porsche servicing really is the intervals are very long. It's 12,000 miles or 12 months. So you know, as opposed to most cars that need servicing twice a year, this is just once a year. Average cost of servicing on something like a Boxer is probably somewhere £300–400. So you know, they are a reasonable car. The build quality and so on, the reliability of the car, they just don't go wrong.
Look at this beautiful colour. It must be a lady who's ordered this one. What do you think, Andy?
I think that's a bit sexist, to be honest with you, but no, in fact it isn't a lady who ordered this. Most people are getting a bit more adventurous now with the colours and styles of what they put on the options on the car, so yeah, they're coming in some bright and bizarre colours now.
Well, we went along to Althorp, home of the Spencers, to take a look at some of those bright and bizarre Porsches. Here we are at Althorp Park on this glorious day. Where else would you find 3,000 people gathered together to celebrate the Porsche? It's the largest gathering in Great Britain. Let's go and see what we can find. A good way for the owners to exhibit the elegance of the Porsche is during the relay race. It's also perfect for burning off some of the good food and drink consumed at the show. The show attracts classic Porsche owners along with more contemporary owners. We were lucky enough to find Don Betts, who spoke to us about his 356.
Hello, nice to meet you.
And how long have you had this?
I bought this car 6 years ago, 1991.
And where did you buy it from?
I bought it, believe it or not, from a firm in London, but I bought it at the NEC in Birmingham. That's where I saw the car, and I decided to get that particular one, 356A as it is.
Any reason for choosing that particular model?
Well, it's the prettiest version actually, because it's the latest of the ones with those low headlights with a nice curved wing. If you look at the ones either side, they're a slightly later model, and they raise the bumper, and also to fit in with the federal American rules and laws on cars, they had to raise the headlights to a higher height to stop dazzle.
Even a Porsche can give you car trouble sometimes.
Hey!
Press manager James Pillar would insist that all new models do start first time. I believe there's quite an interesting story to the Boxer. Didn't it start off as a concept design?
Yes, it was first shown in '93 in January in the Detroit Motor Show as a concept car, and the reaction was so positive. It was the car the factory had to build. The reception was just fantastic. It really was.
So it's the first pure Porsche designed for Porsche in 18 years. Or
That's
something?
right. The 911, as you know, has been with us since 1963. We've had I think about 5 different models over the years, but this is like a pure Porsche from beginning to end. Obviously all the others are, but there's obviously been other involvements as well. This is...
Is it proving popular?
Oh, very popular. We've sold out for over a year now.
Wow, that's amazing.
But hopefully that's going to come down over the next 6 months to a more manageable level as the production increases.
Any chance of cutting me out?
We managed to pin down the busy Fred Hamilton, chairman of the Porsche Club, long enough to tell us about the oldest car at the show. We're here with the earliest model in the whole show. Is it the earliest model to have been produced of Porsche?
Well, no. In actual fact, this is a 1950 car, but Porsche started producing their cars in 1948 at a place called Gmund in Austria. And originally the cars that they produced were very much hand-built in the one-off sense that they had aluminium bodies. But when they moved to Stuttgart to start production, there was a lack of skill in aluminium in the coach works there, so they went over to producing steel bodies. This is a left-hand drive car which was originally supplied to the American market but has been in England for quite a few years now. It certainly is the oldest Porsche and oldest 356 in the UK. It's a 1950 model year car and has been very beautifully restored with a lot of attention to detail by its owner over the last 2 or 3 years.
This looks like metallic paint. Did they have metallic paint in those days?
In the early days, the nearest thing that they had to metallic paint was a sort of lacquered finish, which stayed bright for quite a long time but then had a tendency to go matte. This car in its restoration I think has actually been restored by using a cellulose-based finish, which would be sort of standard on most production cars up to the early 70s. The colour's actually been matched to the original colour, which is fish silver blue, from original 356 sales documentation.
I see it's got a split screen. Why is that?
Technology at the time meant that they hadn't got round to being able to bend glass for use in automotive purposes, so it had a bent screen in the middle. Presumably, if you had a cracked screen on one side, it wasn't as expensive because you could just replace half of the glass.
Did they sell very well at the time?
Well, this really, in a sense, is the car that got Porsche into business as production car builders, in the sense that it was a steel-bodied production car, and between 1950 up to 1954 was when Porsche established itself as a force in the market for specialised hand-built top-quality sports cars, and this would be very much the sort of product that a wealthy German or American might have bought at that time. The interesting things are the skinny wheels and also the white wall tyres, which for that period were very much the sort of stylish thing.
There.
So we've got 15 different versions of the 911. What distinguishes them all from each other?
Mainly drivetrains, whether it's two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive and body styles. This particular one is the 911 Targa, which is a completely glass roof, which the touch of a button all retracts back. Also, which this car features but is available on all the other models, is this Tiptronic gearbox, which is an intelligent automatic basically, but you can override it, and you sort of in F1 style you can change gear by your fingertips, literally up and down the gearbox. And also, obviously, this lovely glass roof.
So we've got another example of the 911 here.
That's right. As I said earlier, there's about 15 different types of 911 you can get now, and this is perhaps the peak of the range. It's the 911 Turbo, 410 horsepower, four-wheel drive, 6-speed, brake system that takes you from 60 to 0 in 2 seconds, engine that takes you 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds. Yet in 1995, it was declared the cleanest production car in the world by the Bavarian industry.
So environmentally friendly as well.
Yes, despite the high-performance sports cars, the environmental compatibility is extremely important to
And how
Porsche.
much would this one cost?
This is £97,000, Pippa.
Well, the day's coming to a close now. We've had a great day. We've met some fascinating people and seen some wonderful cars. I recommend it to anybody. We've not managed to bump into the Spencers yet, but you never know, maybe next year. Anyway, we're going to go home now in our larder.
Yeah, it's always a worry if it doesn't start.
Obviously, a car like that was not for him. After the break, a vehicle that was made for Mr. Mike Rutherford in that it seems quite capable of running everything down in its path with no mercy. Hello again, welcome back. Let's escape this claustrophobic studio to a land where a traffic jam is a vehicle you can just about see on the horizon ahead of you. Let's get this week's episode of Mike's Jeep Jamboree adventure in Alaska.
I've got to say the old Cherokee has done pretty much what you'd expect it to do, really. We're not going to go into a great spiel about how good the Cherokee is because we've talked about it on the programme before, several times I think. This dust is getting on my nerves. But I've got to say, I don't know. The Cherokee has disappointed me a bit on this trip. We've seen one or two vehicles pumping out a hell of a lot of black smoke. We've seen one or two vehicles with reversing lights coming on when people hit their brake lights, seemingly. All right, only one vehicle in that category. And I've seen a lot of vehicles getting stuck. We got stuck ourselves in the mud yesterday, and it didn't look anything. I tried to stick one side of the car in a kind of rut, and the other side on dry land, as it were. So the car was at that sort of angle, but we beached it, or I beached it, me personally, because the underside of the... I'm bruised, I'm battered. The underside of the car collided with the ground, and we were kind of, if you like, beached in mid-air. So it was probably driver error rather than design fault or any criticism with the vehicle. But I was frankly surprised that the Cherokee could get beached so easily in that situation. But they're very solid, and this great new interior, vast improvement on the old Cherokee. Although the styling is just, it suddenly hit me that I prefer the styling of the old one. It was a bit squarer and sharper and a little bit kind of old hat, I suppose, and this is more 90s. It's rounder and smoother.
this is the lunatic that's just done that to me, taking me through rivers and mountains and forests. And Ty, explain what this vehicle is.
Well, it's a self-made vehicle. The chassis is a military Jeep chassis. We put all different lower gears in it, lockers in it, and we wire everything, mount all our own engines and transmissions, and basically build the whole thing. The only thing original is the frame itself.
Four-wheel drive, obviously.
Four-wheel drive, yeah. It's got the lowest 717 gears in the axles, a Detroit locker in rear, power lock in the front. And then the automatic transmissions have low gear kits in them.
Okay, and what about the engine itself? This one I think has a Chevy engine.
Yeah, it's a Chevy V8, and they're basically just stock engines, because we're just kind of creep and roll along. We don't need not horsepower in our way along, and they're just pretty well thought out four-wheel drive vehicles.
I mean, I was just staggered by what we went through there. I mean, this river alone, I mean, just amazing.
Yeah, this is actually a small river as far as what we could cross. This is actually called a creek. This is Friday Creek.
Oh, this is only a creek?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not even a river?
Yeah. Yeah.
But listen, I don't know, what is this? I mean, did you call this a truck? Do you call it an off-roader? What do you call it?
Most people call them Alaska Tundra buggies or swamp buggies.
Hang on, what was the first one?
The Alaska Tundra buggy.
Tundra buggy?
Tundra, yeah. There's lots of tundra up here.
Right,
and
that's cool.
Then there's lots of swamp too, so a lot of people call them swamp buggies. You know?
All right. Now, you designed it, you made it yourself, and in fact you've got 3 or 4 already.
We got 3 right now. Yeah, actually, me and my father made them. Who made them?
Okay.
And
But why not, go into commercial production? I mean, I've seen what's been done today with this thing, just staggering. I mean, any thoughts of widening the business and maybe exporting them even to other countries?
Well, that'd be good, We're capable of making them, that's for sure.
What sort of cost is involved? What would it cost to buy one of these things all made up after you and your little workshop has gone to work on these for a few weeks?
Around $30,000 would be a basic price,
$30,000?
Yeah.
That's about £20,000.
Yeah, and that would be, new engines, transmissions, all new gears, lockers, and everything is new. Like I said, we cut our own glass and wire it completely ourselves.
Now, more likely, I think, than anybody in England buying one of these, or in Britain, I should say. Britain, not England, sorry. More likely is that somebody might take a ride in one rather than buy one. If they just happen to be passing through Alaska, or pretty, about 100 miles away from Anchorage, are we about that distance away, and they fancy going to see a glacier, they can hitch a ride with you. What will that cost them for the day?
Full day, $89, and that's with meals and drinks and
it's a long day as well.
Yeah,
I mean that in the nicest possible.
8-hour plus day.
Yeah. And so, did you say $90? That's about £60 per person.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay, but $90.
Yeah, $90.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have I paid you yet? Actually, I don't remember paying you. Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, that's.
But listen, there was something else I was going to ask you, and that's. You kindly let me have a drive of your vehicle, and I think you were pretty cautious about that. When I asked you first thing, you said no. When you realised what a nice guy I was, you reluctantly agreed. Yeah. And I've got to say, I was amazed how refined it was. It was very quiet, actually. Very easy to drive.
Smooth riding and stuff. And
absolutely.
The body has its own suspension, separate of the main frame suspension.
That was quite obvious from the movement.
Yeah, yeah.
But let me ask you, how many British people have actually driven one of these things?
None. You're the first. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, I am the first Briton in the world ever to drive
an Alaskan Tundra buggy.
Another first for Britain. We're still discovering things on the other side of the world. This is Mike Rutherford, News at 10, Alaska.
What an adventure. And if you're jealous of all the things Mike's done, just enrol to be an international automotive freeloader. I think you can get the form at the post office. Right, a quick break and then we'll get all moist-eyed and nostalgic having a tour around the Vauxhall Heritage Centre near Luton. Hello once again from Four Wheels Good. Well, it's time to raise and salute the standard once more. The UK car industry did actually produce some excellent cars over the years. OK, so there were one or two dogs as well, but you learn from your mistakes, don't you? Ian Royle visited Luton to check out the Vauxhall Heritage Centre.
Now, every car manufacturer has their own unique history, and here at Vauxhall in Luton, it's no exception. This is the Vauxhall Heritage Centre, where they've collected over the years a great selection of cars going right the way back to the very first Vauxhall built in 1903, which we're going to take a look at in a minute. This is Vauxhall's very first car built in 1903, and with me Bernard Bridgley, who's in charge of the Vauxhall Heritage Centre. Bernard, what was the thinking behind Vauxhall introducing this car back in 1903?
Well, the horseless carriage came on the scene, and obviously the managers at the time thought this was a good investment, and this is an example of our first model, which ran for 2 years, single cylinder. And then we went on to a 3-cylinder in 1905, which we've now started to make again with a new Corsa 3-cylinder.
So this is about 5 horsepower, do about 30 miles an hour top speed?
Yeah, that's about it, yeah.
And what would this have cost back in 1903?
£142, this 4-seater, which was a lot of money then, if you think about it, you know.
What are the main features of the car?
Well, this has got it's a single cylinder, mechanical exhaust valve, atmospheric inlet valve, 2-speed epicyclic gears, no front wheel brakes, tiller steering, which thank goodness went a long while ago. We only built it with a tiller for about 18 months, and then we fitted a steering wheel. But yeah, it's quite a motor car.
Well, let's move on, take a look at one or two other cars here in the museum. Now, Bernard, there was a fairly radical change at the end of the 40s into the start of the 50s when the old wing-shaped cars went out and beautiful cars like this were introduced by Vauxhall. These two particularly very American influences. Why did you think they went down that particular route?
Well, I think it was a sign of the times, because a lot of the designs here were approved by the States, but it was going that way. You know, we're trying to get away with the pre-war image and to bring into a new image of the 50s, you know. And we had just had the Festival of Britain in 1951, and this was sort of the sign of the times, you know.
Now, Bernard, this is a very familiar car, the Vauxhall Viva, introduced in 1964. I think at one stage we've probably all had one of these Vauxhall Vivas. I remember my parents had one. The thinking behind the Viva's introduction was to try and relate to the Mini at the time, I think.
That's correct, yes. We hadn't got a small car at the time, and we brought this one out just after the Mini, and it was very successful. And it went on to 2 other models afterwards.
And they sold tremendously well.
Well, we started building this particular model in Luton, and then we opened our plant at Ellesmere Port, and they started making them as well. And they made all the Vivas as well as Luton. It's a very successful car.
What sort of power and comforts did the Viva have when it was introduced?
Well, comparing it with today, rather basic, I'm afraid. They had a thing called a heater, you know, but that was about it on the cheap models. But there was other variants. We did one with a hotted up engine, and as I say, it was a very successful model.
What were Vauxhall's luxury cars in the 60s and 70s? This is the Vauxhall Victor.
Well, this is the Victor FE, and it's called the Ventura 6-cylinder, and it was the top of the range at the time. It's got all the luxuries you want, automatic gearbox, hasn't got electric windows, but it's got everything else.
And then we progressed on to the 80s and the start of the very famous and popular Vauxhall Astra.
That's correct, yes, and that had, of course, a new transverse engine, which made motoring a completely different thing altogether. Until you've driven the car before and the car after, you just don't know the difference. It's absolutely amazing.
So we've had a chance to view here at the Heritage Centre in Luton cars right the way through from the very first Vauxhall built in 1903 right the way through to the 1980s, and perhaps the car that was the saving grace for the Luton plant, the Vauxhall Cavalier, which we all know and love. It's been a very interesting tour, a chance to see some beautiful old cars which Vauxhall have very carefully restored right the way back from the very first car built in 1903.
Ian Royle amongst the Victors, Vivas and now Vectras. No doubt they've copyrighted every other decent word beginning with V for future models. Well, at last the lads in the workshop are getting towards the end of their paint job on the Citroen. Here's this week's edition of Inside Motors.
That one again is pretty self-explanatory. This tends to happen if you hold the can too far away, right? The paint can't link up to itself and flow in a nice even film. Also, instead of doing nice even strokes across the job like we were doing over there, the spraying here is a little bit erratic. The blobs that you can see are where the can has stopped during a stroke, all right? Now at least with this, you can go back to it and put more paint on. So it's not as bad as that.
Right. So like you were saying earlier, you can always put more on, you can't take it off.
It's very difficult to take it off, yeah. This one is something that we come up against now and again. If you look closely at that, you can see little pinholes. We call them fish eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's grease, polish, that sort of thing, dirt causes that.
Right, so that's why you did the thinners?
That's why I use the thinners. I mean, rubbing down your surface cleans it anyway. The thinners, as we said, is a belt and braces approach. But if you don't do that and you spray straight onto a vehicle, maybe it's got some wax polish on it already, you're going to get that. That again is the same as that. 24 hours, rub the whole lot off, start again. Oh. This one, this should be gloss black.
Oh, doesn't look very glossy.
It should be nice and glossy, just like the car is, and it's not. What's happened is, there's too much moisture that's gone into that. You have to pick your spraying conditions. Don't spray on a cold, wet, damp morning, you know. Pick your conditions. I mean, even in winter, we can get nice, dry, sunny days. They're good spraying days. A cold, rainy, damp December morning will do you no favours whatsoever, and you will end up dragging in excessive moisture from the air into your paint, which will give you that effect.
What's that called, by the way,
That's generally called blooming.
Blooming horrible, that's what I call that.
Yes, blooming horrible, yeah.
That's looking a heck of a lot better now.
It is, yeah. I think what we need to do now, John, actually is get rid of all this masking and all the newspaper, especially the masking tape, before the paint comes too dry. Because if we let it dry, we'll end up pulling it where it's formed a continuous film from the job to the tape. When we break that film, it'll start to pull. We need to get the masking tape off now.
Right, do you want me to start here?
Start at the top, work towards the job.
Right.
The next stage, nothing for 7 days. Absolutely nothing. Again, just as with the primer, very, very important. Don't touch it, don't mess with it. Above all, don't polish it. That's a mistake that many people make. The paint's new, it's soft. Most of polishes are abrasive, and you don't want to be rubbing little particles of grit into your nice new soft paintwork, right? Leave it for 7 days or the paint fully hardens. What you may like to do in the meantime is to apply a colour restorer to the rest of the vehicle. It's fairly easy for you because we've actually just done 2 panels, so you can do the whole vehicle, just leave the panels that we've sprayed. If you take a close look here, where we had to blend the paint into an existing panel, you can see that we've done quite a nice job. That will be very, very easy to blend in.
Smooth as a baby's bottom, as they say. It took a long time, but the end result looks like being worth it. Next week we'll be driving all-electric Toyota RAV4s in Jersey, taking some advanced driving lessons and enjoying Audi's latest executive saloon. From all of us here, it's goodbye.